I can't ever recall seeing a turnaround like this. I mean, maybe there has been one by any. I'm talking about anybody playing, be it baseball or football, and suddenly playing half their season and being no better than a 500 team at best, and all of a sudden the second half of the season they 21-4 or 21-3 or something in the first 24 games, and not just getting lucky. I mean, beating people over the head with the ball. You know, I mean, winning, getting out in front. It's fun. One of the things I remember most about the 80s Celtics, and not to go comparing teams, but one thing they would do is, we did all the home games and I didn't go out on the road, so they would just destroy people at home all the time, and they'd get like an 18 or 20 point lead in the first quarter, and then it'd be 17 at the half, and we'd go to 16 after 3, and then win by 19. You know, and but they never let anybody back into games. There were no such things as, you always hear people talk and say, well, this team's got 1 or 2 runs. Thank you for that. One or 2 runs left in them. There are no runs. The game the other night, they got up a 20 on Utah. And the Jazz were never in it. Never got it even close to single digits. Forget about making a run at it. So the Celtics have margin of victory in the last like 10 games, something like 25 points a game. So can they keep this up? Why not? You know, you certainly, we would have said if we were doing this 10 games ago, well, they probably can't. Then all of a sudden it'd be 10-0 and would look bad. So I don't see any reason why they can't continue to do this. We'll see Sunday. It's a pretty good team from Minnesota coming in. They haven't been good in the past, but they seem to be pretty good this year. Memphis is still on the schedule, last game of the year. That may not mean anything to either side, but that's a very good team. They're playing too. Milwaukee. Chicago has really hit the skids. I don't know what's going on there, but they just seem to be losing every game. I think it's going to be interesting over these next couple of weeks to see if they can keep this up. But I don't see any reason they can't. Then you get some momentum going in the playoffs. It's a whole, you know, the thing is, people forget when you go to the playoffs, it could be like 25 or 30 more games you play over the course of a month or two. So it really is like a second season. And they sure have had a good prep for that second season right now.
It is wild. Like you mentioned, obviously the half season turnaround that we've experienced here. And I saw somebody tweeting out the other day, sort of what you're talking about. Like, when's the last time somebody can think of something like this? And a couple of the ones that sort of came to my mind, and I don't remember those seasons well enough to remember if there was some big in-season move, but I really don't think there was. You think of the St. Louis Blues, you know, the year they came back and they beat the Bruins in the Cup. They were a floundering team until January. Obviously, I think it was the year before the baseball shortened season that we had because of the pandemic, 2019, that the Nationals went out. You know, they were the worst team in the National League until, July or whatever it was, and then came back, won the World Series. They were a wagon. But to your point, like, we never see this. You know, this was a team. Grandy was having fun with this on Twitter the other day, the whole, you know, how it started, how it's going. This team, it took 47 games, Mike, to win their first 23, and they've won 23 of their last 27. It's absolutely insane what they've been up to, obviously. And so, now just a game and a half out of first in the East. They're, it's still crowded, obviously, but Miami is starting to kind of fall apart just a little bit. Injuries have contributed to that, but as we saw, there's some attitude issues on that bench as well, potentially. So I mean, I'll ask you, are you ready to say not just that this team has the ability to go to the NBA Finals, but that it will go to the NBA Finals? Are you ready to get on that hill yet?
Well, I'll tell you this: I'll be surprised if they don't make the Eastern Conference Finals. I'll be very surprised. They'll have to be upset by somebody for that to happen, which again seems crazy to say a month ago or 2 months ago. But I'm not going to say anything less than the NBA Finals would be a disappointment. I think anything less than the Eastern Conference Finals right now would be a disappointment, because I think they have a great record against these teams that are in front of them. It's not like these teams beat them up all year long. It's just the reverse is true. So they're going to go in a confident bunch. They've got a great player in Tatum who seems to get better as the season goes on. Certainly has shown us his ability to pass the ball and how well he can pass the ball. He puts his mind to it. Brown is, consistently does something which is really good, and that he's a first quarter player by nature. He just gets the team going quickly all the time, and that's been a big help for this team that used to fall behind on the first quarter all the time. So they get all the right pieces. Everybody's playing well. Everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. Nobody's trying to do more than they can. Marcus Smart he's the glue of this club, and people can say what they want. When trading deadline went by and he hadn't been traded, I literally did a dance. I mean, because I thought they had a shot if he left. And now with him there and probably going to be there for the long haul, I just think they've got a unique player in him. They've got a good bench coming in now. People, again, know their roles. They come out and they play their roles. They'll try to do more than that. Rob, as Williams, has really emerged as a terrific player. I mean, really a terrific game-changing type of player. And his minutes get longer every time he plays. So, I mean, they just have a lot of answers, I guess what I'm trying to say. They have a lot of strong answers for the questions is how do you do in the playoffs? And everybody says, well, the playoffs mean defense. Well, this team has been practicing and playing defense for quite some time. So it's not going to be a flip the switch and suddenly we play defense thing. This is something they've been doing for quite a while. So, and doing quite successfully. So, and it's a long-winded answer to your question, but I would say Eastern Conference Finals, anything less a disappointment. And if they got to the NBA Finals right now, as crazy as that sounds, I wouldn't be all that surprised.
Well, to that point, Ev, I think it's good that, Mike acknowledged this. Others have started to as well. I think it's good that we're moving the goalposts for this team. We should be. We shouldn't just be.
Oh, yeah.
After what we've seen over the last couple of months, we shouldn't, if this team should happen to go down in round 2 of the playoffs, let's say, we shouldn't be sitting there saying, well, this is about where people expected them to be at the start of the year. No, expectations have changed.
No question.
No question about that. But the thing with me is, and as everybody tries to play, though, what position do you want? Like, what seed do you want in the playoffs? There is lurking the 2-3 scenario where you have to play Giannis and the Bucks that I'm a little scared of before the Eastern Conference Finals, and that's really the only scenario where I see that both these teams are really excellent on both sides of the ball, and they're both spearheaded by guys that are very difficult to guard. Tatum is proving every game that he's just an absolutely wonderful all-around player. The vision's there, the handle's there, the shot making's there, the leadership is there, the defensive stuff. So, I mean, it's all there. Meanwhile, on the other side, you have Giannis, who, by the way, just dropped 50 points in a Game 6 of the NBA Finals not so long ago. That is the guy I'm worried about of anybody in the Eastern Conference. And whenever you play that particular team, if it's the second round in the 2-3 matchup, that's tough. If it's the NBA, if it's the Eastern Conference Finals, that's tough too. But this team has really done an amazing job once the calendar hit 2022 to just be a completely different focused team. As Mike alluded to in terms of getting out to good starts, that Jazz game was maybe the best start I've maybe ever seen in a basketball game by a basketball team. I mean, 7 minutes into the game is 28-12, and they haven't missed a shot. And I think they had 10 makes and 9 assists. It's like, yeah, that's exactly how you draw up a start to a game. And it's just the energy level's different. The quotes out of the locker room are different. You're seeing a different side of Ime. I mean, everything has just clicked. And that switch that people always refer to that not everybody can turn on. Well, the Celtics found a way to turn that thing on. And they haven't let up since. And when you look at this team and the balance, it's remarkable. And the only thing, I think Mike had a great way to put it. It's, people had a lot of questions to ask, and they've answered a lot of them. And I think that's right. And my question for Mike as we move forward here is, what other questions do we have to ask this team before it's like, yeah, this is the only thing I think is holding this team back. And Mike, you and Scal the other night, you could, every time Derek White took a shot, it was like, oh, just please go in, because that's the last piece here. The last piece is Derek White hitting shots, and then we're really running here. Is that really it? Is it just like a consistent 10, 12 points from Derek White and this team's unstoppable, or is there other things that we might have to answer?
Well, I think everybody has to play up to what they've done so far. I think that Grant Williams off the bench has to be a physical force in the game, a guy who can go out and bother Giannis for a long period of time. If he gives up 6 fouls doing it, so what? But he'll go out and have to body people and get together with people that way. Again, White making shots certainly would be nice. I just want to see him make shots initially, so I can see the frustration on his face. I mean, he doesn't take bad shots. It's not like he's taking bad shots and missing. He's taking good shots. They're just not going down. They rattle around, they come out. So I just think that, again, if everybody sticks to what they do best and does what they do best and doesn't try to do more, which I think is a danger a little bit for the younger guys because they want to win so badly, that if things get tight, they may want to depart from what has got them there to try to go one-on-one again. I think that it's a bad habit that still exists on this team. I saw a little bit of the other night against the Jazz late. I think people stopped passing the ball and started just trying to go one-on-one. You can't do that. One of the things I was thinking, though, as it gave that scenario of the different teams, I can't remember a time where everybody is so dependent on one guy. You take obviously Tatum away from the Celtics, and we're not talking about any chances they have. You take Jimmy Butler away from Miami, they're not going anywhere without him. You take Giannis away from the Bucks, see you later, they're not going anywhere without him. You take Embiid away from the Sixers, they're not going anywhere. So all these teams that would like to see playoff when they're all healthy, no one is going to make it through that whole thing. I didn't mention Durant. No one's going to make it through that whole thing and never get hurt. So that's going to be the big thing, is who's going to go down in that bunch, and the Embiid and the Butler and the Tatum and the I'm leaving out somebody, but you know what I'm saying, is they're all driven by one man. And if they aren't, if that guy goes down, then that's the gift. Everybody says you don't play New Jersey, not New Jersey. You don't want to play Brooklyn. I don't care whether you play Brooklyn. You're gonna have to get through Brooklyn at some point. Play them right away. You know, and I'm not sure that's all going to work out as great as people think it is when Kyrie finally plays every game. I think there'll be a point where Kyrie wants the ball and Durant says no, and that relationship is going to start to fringe a little bit. So we'll see.
I think that, you know, for anyone out there with 8 games left in the regular season that is saying there's still that thing, you know, I don't believe in the Celtics yet. I'm not saying pencil them into the finals, but in terms of a deep run, I don't believe in the Celtics yet. You're just being defiant. At this point, you're being defiant because, you know, it's anyone can say, well, show me in the playoffs. Fine. But what about the rest of the regular season to get there? What does it take for you to, you know, what's missing to get you to fully buy in? And so I asked the Twitter community, Mike, and some of the answers that I got, and I thought there were some good ones here. Some people said, and I believe in this one, not having fresh legs, if Ime keeps, you know, grinding with an 8-man rotation, even during blowouts and not getting his starters some rest. Fortunately, he did against Utah, didn't against OKC. And I think that was part of that sort of fourth quarter collapse there before they held on. Bench scoring.
Always last game of the West Coast road trip. So second half, it's always a disaster.
Absolutely. Bench scoring, you know, you mentioned obviously Derek White. Some people are concerned about that. Getting cold from 3-point range, which I think, you know, that's viable. They're on a hot streak right now. Jaylen Brown getting double teamed with Jason Tatum off the floor. And then where does your offense come from, you know, on a consistent basis? That's valid. Overconfidence, which I would be a thing that I would worry about if not for the fact that Tatum and Brown and Smart have been around long enough to have deep runs and to get upset early. Like, they've seen both sides of the coin. So the overconfidence thing, getting cocky, that really doesn't concern me. Other teams getting start calls, but not Tatum. The Nets, you know, with Irving available for home games, as you hit on, then, you know, all that range to the other end of the spectrum, which is, you know, do we have enough room for another banner? Is Boston going to be so dominant in the playoffs it's actually going to be boring? This is, you know, concern out there from people. So, you know, is there that one thing, just to kind of build on what you were just talking about, is there that one thing that you feel like you still need to see, having seen championship teams, plenty of them in the past? Is there that one thing this team needs to show you to sort of put them in that same company with all those others?
That they can score in the half court, and it doesn't have to be a 3 from the corner. I'd like to see something where they can maybe post the L up a little bit on occasion on people. I'd like to see the ball go inside and not necessarily come back out. Like they always say, go inside and then pass to the corner and stuff like that. I think they need to score in the paint. In the playoffs, you've got to come up with big numbers in the paint. If you don't, you'll have games where you win, but you'll have games where you get slaughtered if the 3 doesn't go down. And we've seen it. And the Celtics defend the 3 very well, and you see very few uncontested 3s against them. Usually they're at least contested. So they need to keep that up. They can't get down. Somebody's going to get really hot in a game and beat them maybe where they shouldn't get, they didn't think they're going to lose, and they can't let that get to them. A lot of it's going to be mental. I mean, you got a whole coaching staff that's never been. This is all new ground for them. They haven't been through a playoff series, and so that's going to be interesting to see how they react as coaches to this whole situation. In fact, the more I think about it, there may be more pressure on the coaches than there is on the players right now going into this, because again, they're the unproven quantity. He's done a wonderful job with them. He's got them to listen to him. I think they fear him a little bit. I think he's a real hard ass. It's good. They need the hard ass in that locker room. And so it's going to be interesting to see. He's gone from like, what? Who's the coach? Where did he come from? To coach of the year, coach of the month, maybe coach of 2 months. I don't know, less. It's going to be hard to vote against him, but this month too. So he's made a big leap from nowhere to somebody, and now he's going to go in the playoffs. And, losing the first and second round of the playoffs, and all of a sudden then you're not very good anymore. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with and if he can keep them on the same page. So it shouldn't be that hard because, again, nobody's doing what they don't do best. And Tatum is still getting his 25 shots a game. Brown's still getting his 25 shots a game. So as long as those guys can just stay happy with that and move the ball around a little bit, get some other people involved on occasion, and have some other people make shots, then this team can go a long way because they have the rim protector. They have the guy. You're going to have. You can't. Al Horford has had a good year blocking shots, and a big reason for this is because the guys are not looking for Al; they're looking for Rob. They're trying to figure out where he is when they drive to the basket because he's so good at coming from off his man to block shots, and that allows Al the opportunity to come from his man and block shots. And he's had a great year, I think, blocking shots, which I didn't expect. So, and he's kind of a question mark in that when you talk about minutes, that's the oldest guy on the team, and they're different minutes now. There's pressure minutes. Every trip up the court is a pressure trip up the court. So he's got to hold up. But they're doing a pretty good job of resting him, I think. And again, I don't see anything wrong with what's going on right now. And so to answer your question as to what is that big thing, I don't think there is the one thing. I think it's just more of the same. That's what we want to see. We don't want to see any drastic change the first game in the playoffs. Where all of a sudden they're not being the team they were for the first 10 minutes, as Evan said, against the Utah Jazz, because I agree with him. I hadn't seen him play, obviously, in person in a while because they go on the West Coast road trip. Mm-hmm. But I'm sitting there in the garden and go, holy cow. It reminded me, and they hate this comparison, but it reminded me of the Georgetown Hoyas back in the Big East days, because you always had to count the players out there because it seemed like there were about 7 Hoyas out there that could play defense. And that's the way the Celtics were. It's like every guy who got the ball in Utah got double teamed. And they just didn't cope with it. And Dwayne Wade was sitting about 4 or 5 seats off to my right. I didn't realize he's a partial owner now of the Jazz. And there was a point where, what's his name? Donovan came over to, Donovan came over to Wade. And I was told afterwards by somebody who was sitting there, he said to Wade, he said, we can't figure out what these guys are doing defensively. We have no clue.